Oh, Travis. Hello, Jeff from Las Vegas. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for doing this. It means a lot.
Oh, my pleasure. You have a great subject matter for is your first book, right?
It is, yeah.
Wow. So choosing Jeff Goldblum as the subject of your first book, 320 pages chronicling his acting and music career. I heard it all started in a newsroom.
It did, yeah. I worked at the Washington Post as a features reporter, and one day it was like a Friday afternoon, and Jeff Goldblum was releasing his first jazz album, and I remember we were all just kind of talking about him, and at some point I said, I think it's so interesting that this guy who was this, big actor in the 80s, A-lister in the 90s, somehow seems ubiquitous today. He feels almost more famous than he used to be. And, if you look at his filmography, it's not like he's doing a lot of big movies anymore. And I said, why does everyone like this guy so much? And I swear this sounds inventive, but all my colleagues, like at the same time, just go, because he's Jeff Goldblum. Like it should be self-evident. And so my editor was like, you should write a piece about this. And then I just kept thinking about it, and it turned into a book.
And you pitched it to different publishers, and when they bought your book, you started to panic, right? Because now all of a sudden it became real.
Yeah, no, because then you have to write a book, and as it turns out, that's a little bit different than writing even a features article.
This is an unauthorized biography, but you spoke to many of his co-stars and people involved in his life, right?
I did. I spoke to dozens upon dozens of directors who worked with them, actors who worked with them. I had the pleasure of speaking with people like Philip Kaufman and Lawrence Kasdan, who directed him early in his career, and actors like Billy Crudup, who acted with them on stage. And then I spoke to a lot of film critics and cultural critics, like Klosterman and Adam Naiman, and was really trying to kind of just create this full picture of a guy who everyone seems to like an awful lot, but also who feels sort of unknowable.
And I think you spoke to Harry Shearer, who's like one of my all-time favorites. Do you have some good stories from him?
Oh man, Harry was great. So Harry and Jeff were they acted together in The Right Stuff. They have like very small part in this long movie when they're kind of the comic relief. They play two government schmucks who are kind of trying to screw everything up. And Harry was telling me that they didn't realize that they were going to have to like go on an actual aircraft carrier, and they just got seasick while doing that. And the first night they were there, the director, I guess, they didn't have housing for him, so they were going to put him up in the aircraft carrier, just like in the bunks. And Phil Kaufman, who directed the movie, is like, no, come to my house. We'll hang out.
And what question did you really have to dig for the answer when researching this book?
I think that the thing I was trying to get at is, why do people like him so much still? Why has he remained so well, just beloved? And I think well, that's not like the most, difficult question for people to answer. Everyone had a different answer. I thought that was really interesting, and trying to like take that and figure out what it actually means. And one of my takeaways, one of the things I was really interested in, actually has less to do with Goldblum and more about the internet and how fame and celebrity has really changed over the past 40 years. And his career perfectly exemplifies that. Now we have memes and social media. And I think that if his career had been, I don't know, started 20 years earlier, then maybe he would have faded away a little bit.
I think Silverado was the first time that I was aware of Jeff Goldblum. I was back in high school, and that's one of my favorite roles of his. And also Earth Girls Are Easy, a few years after that. And of course he took off with Jurassic Park, which, made him a household name. But my very first year as a film critic, I met Jeff Goldblum for Independence Day, because they shot it here in Las Vegas and Rachel, Nevada, and the Independence Highway. And they had a press event at Planet Hollywood after that. And so I was hanging out with Jeff Goldblum then. But I think my favorite moment with him is I did the press junket in New York for Life Aquatic.
Oh, cool.
I'm going in to do my actual first interview with Jeff Goldblum, and I was nervous, because I'm such a big fan of his. And I'll never forget, when I walk in, they introduce me. This is Jeff Howard from Las Vegas. And he immediately goes, calling Dr. Howard, Dr. Fine, Dr. Howard. And I went, and I sat down, and I go, Men in Black, Three Stooges, their second sound short ever. And he just went, he couldn't believe I knew that. So we just said,
he loves. That's great.
Right. So he never thought, oh, who's going to get this Three Stooges reference? So we bonded on that. So that was one of my favorite moments. But What an interesting subject matter. Now, for an author, do you relax after you complete your first book, or are you feverishly working on your next one?
I think the latter, feverishly working on the next proposal, and the work keeps me busy. But honestly, like I thought there would be a moment of relaxation when I finished the book, and no, turns out you just kind of keep moving. I don't know.
Well, I think that on everyone's mind is, has Goldblum read this? Have you heard from him? Do you hope he reads it?
I hope he reads it, and I hope I hear from him. I feel like I'll hear from him for one of two reasons. Either I'll hear from him because he's really happy, or because he's really unhappy. I think it's a pretty flattering portrait. I think he'd be pleased with it. I hope he reads it.
Absolutely.
It's strange to spend so much time thinking about a person, and then, you know.
Well, I think you're probably going to have some great feedback from him. He's a great guy. I mean, I've only heard great things about him.
Same. I mean, that was one of my biggest takeaways. I spoke to so many people who've known him over the years, and no one said a negative thing. And you know, at one point I spoke to an ex-fiance who certainly had cause to say something negative if she wanted, and no, nothing.
Absolutely. Well, Travis, congratulations on your first book. What a great subject matter. And I appreciate you talking to me today, and I wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me. It really means a lot.